Hi guys, it's Sarah. A lot of you have been asking me for some more solar light videos, so here we go. Here is a beach themed solar light. I made a couple of these for around our fire pit. We really love the way they look at night. So I hope you enjoy this and stay tuned for exactly how I made these. So here are a few of the items that I used to make our beach style solar lights. I picked most of these up either from Dollar Tree or already had them around the house. The seashells I already had around the house. This solar light I picked up at Dollar Tree, but if they don't have any, you can also pick up for 97 cents each very similar lights at Walmart. So these are fairly easy to find and very inexpensive. The next thing is some of these glass globe lights that I picked up at our restore here in town, and these are used. But I was able to pick them up for $1 a piece, and the scoopy stuff up around the top, I'm not really worried about because we'll have these covered up anyway, so you'll never see those. The next thing I'm using is some of this rope from Dollar Tree, a couple seashells, which I already had in my stash, but you can also pick up a small bag of seashells at Dollar Tree as well. I have some E6000, and I also have a couple different colors of multi-use paint and a different colors of brown. This should stand up to weathering outside. Now we're going to start with the solar light, and it's really easy to take these apart. I'm just going to pull off the post because we don't need this. And then I'm also going to pull off this aluminum ring that's on the top of the solar light here. Some of them come with these metal rings on the top, some do not. So if it has it, go ahead and take it off because I believe the paint will adhere much better to the plastic. If yours don't have the aluminum ring like these, it's fine. Just go ahead and paint over the silver. The end result will be the same. Now we're going to go ahead and paint the black cap only on our solar light. And I'm going to start out using the chocolate brown paint. I'm going to do a solid coat all the way around and completely coat the black. Then I'm going to let these dry completely. I am going to be careful as I paint around the solar panel. I don't want to get any paint over it because we do want it to be able to soak up as much light as possible. So I'm using a chip brush for this just because I want that little bit of texture. I want that little bit of grain look for when we go back in and age it with the lighter color brown. And again, just being very careful along the top here. If you do get any paint on the solar panel, it's very easy just to scrape it off with your fingernail once it dries. Now, I found in painting the dark brown onto the solar lights here that it was much easier to handle and set up to dry when I had the post on it. So I went ahead and popped the post back on it for this process. And I'm just using a small amount of the tan paint and a very dry chip brush. I'm going to dab it into the paint, then I'm going to brush off a lot of the paint because what we want to have when we start painting is a very light distressed look around the top of these solar lights. I wanted to give it kind of a driftwood feel, like it's been sitting in the water, it's been bleached by the sun and salt, and it just gives it that more of that beachy vibe we're looking for with these lights. So I went ahead and started brushing on, and in a couple spots you can see here it's a little bit heavier than I liked it, but what I ended up doing was brushing back over the paint that was too heavy and pulling some of that paint back off using a dry brush, and it still achieved that same aged look when I was finished, and you'll see me doing that in a minute. Right now I'm just finishing off the the top of the light, and you can see where some of that buff paint got onto the solar panels, but it'll be easy to clean off. Now it's time to start working on the bell shape for our hanging solar light. And the first thing I'm going to do is just measure out about 10 inches of our rope here. And I'm going to cut it off. This will be our handle for our light. So I'm just going to trim off the edges right here where it came unraveled so that we have a nice clean edge to work with. Then I'm just going to use a bit of hot glue to hold the end of the rope together so it doesn't unravel on me anymore. Once I have that on there, I'm going to go ahead and measure out the 10 inches, cut the other side, and then once that is cut, I'm going to go ahead and seal that with a bit of hot glue as well. Now I'm going to take the 10-inch length of rope, and this again will be acting as our handle. I'm going to glue it on either side of the top of our bell globe here, and I'm going to be using some E6000 for strength to hold the rope in place. But after I place that on, I'm also going to be using some hot glue, and the hot glue will hold this in place quickly while the E6000 sets up to add strength to the piece. I'm going to hold this on here just long enough for the hot glue to set up. Then I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process with the other side. For this next step, I'm going to cut off a piece of the rope at an angle. And the reason I'm doing this is so it will lay more smoothly as I lay it down on the bell to begin the rope coil around the top. And I'm going to do it right about in the center in between the two pieces of our hangers. And again, I'm going to use some hot glue and some E6000 to start the rope. I'm also starting it just underneath the inset and the globe there, where when it's hanging in a fixture is where the screws come together to hold it into place, because I do want to make sure we have complete coverage of that white whatever it is. It's gotten hard over time, so I'm not sure what they used on it. I don't know if it was a silicone, but it's very hard now. And I'm going back and forth again, just using the hot glue and the E6000 and carefully laying this out around the edge. And I'm going to do this 3 times. I'm going to make 3 complete layers around the globe itself so that it starts out just below the lower part. Then I'm going to actually lay a bead of hot glue over all that white stuff, just to add a little bit of height to it when I make the second layer, so that all 3 pieces of our rope look like they're even going up the outside of it. I don't want that middle layer to be laying back inside below the other 2. Once the hot glue has dried on all of that white stuff that's in the indentation, I'm going to continue using the same method that I used to bring the rope around the first time with the E6000 and more hot glue just to hold it in place. And I'm going to bring the rope around 2 more times until it meets in the same location at the top of our glass bell that we began the rope, if that makes sense. You'll see what I mean here in a minute when we get to that place. Now that I have the rope completely around 3 times, I'm going to cut this off, and I'm cutting it at an angle again, just so we have it laying more smoothly across the top than it would if we had just given it a severe blunt cut. And I'm going to use a little more of the hot glue to hold it in place. And this is just to make sure none of the rope doesn't unravel, none of those strays come apart. And I'm going to hold that down until that hot glue dries, making sure that it is well secured. Now that our glue has dried, our rope is in place, I'm going to go right back over the place with my E6000 and some hot glue, and this is the same spot, the center where we both began and ended the rope in the center of our bell. And the reason I did that is because now we are going to cover it with the seashell design. And this is just an embellishment, but it also covers and gives a nice, neat look to the entire design because you cannot see where the rope actually began and ended. And you can see I actually just set the solar light in the top before I placed the shell. It's not attached to anything. It's just sitting in there freely. And here you can see what the finished products look like hanging on those Dollar Tree hooks that I picked up. They're just sitting in some urns filled with flowers, and this is how they look both in the daytime and at night. I absolutely love these. I'm thinking of making some more for my shop to see how they do. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you soon with my next project. Bye-bye.